Hello everyone and welcome to another Patreon tutorial. This time we are focusing on the skin coloring, and I thought that I combine or show you how to combine watercolors together with some comic markers actually. First off, there's one thing I need to explain maybe, that with watercolor markers you usually want to start with your watercolors first and with the markers second, because otherwise, and you might know this from another tutorial, when you use markers first, let me show you with this blender, and watercolor second, the watercolor actually, I don't know, like it soaks into the marker, as you can see, and we don't want this to happen to our skin. So we need to start with the watercolor first, and for this because this is a manga drawing or anime drawing, whatever you want to call it, I want this to be a bit more simplistic to resonate with the more manga anime style. And for that I start with wetting, or like with the first wash of just clear water, so the pigments flow better when I place them. And I just start by applying this layer on the face. So I spare the neck and everything else. I just want this area to be done and to be able to focus my whole attention towards this area. And once this is done, I on the right here I have like the colors that I typically use for coloring skin tones. That is magenta, orange, and Naples yellow reddish. And let's just do a first layer of just Naples yellow reddish to get like a base. We could already use some different colors, but I think it's the more easiest way. And I try to shade like around the outer edges, so the center of the face is a bit lighter and the shadows are more spread around the outlines. And as you can see, maybe from the last video where I did the hair, I tried to cover up some overpainting right here, and I hope that with enough paint that this won't be noticeable anymore. So still using the Naples yellow reddish. And yeah, in essence I just try to think of the head as I did with the hair. As you can see, like the outer edges are darker and in the center it's lighter. I do this with the face almost like the same. There are like things that you can put some variety in it, because so you can just like color the chin area a bit darker and go lighter towards the forehead, or you can just do it the other way around, which I might do here. But for this one I go a bit darker around the area that is down there. And while this is still wet, we can already apply some orange there as well. So I use those both colors to mix some mid-tone, and again focus on shading the outlines. And as you can see, it bleeds right in, but with a clean brush you can just spread it around and push the pigments where we want. Which is also like, in case you make any mistakes or stuff like that, just use the clean brush. And as long as it's still wet, it shouldn't be a problem to just get rid of that. So It's still wet, so the paper has had no chance really to dry, and I just try to do some smooth shadows, and again I just place the color and wipe it until it's decent enough, or it's like not that bold and blends everything together. So as you might have noticed, like with these two drawings, the noses actually, like both of them, they are different. So here we have like just a line maybe, and here we have, let's put it simply, like two dots like the nostrils. And this opens up for different coloring. So I try to make it different here, but for this one I just shade the area under the nose and slightly drag it up. So this way we can get a bit of depth there. So next we use some magenta here to have his face not only orange but also get some reds in it to make it more vivid and yeah, like prevent it from looking orange, because in fact we have only used yellow and orange. And I still just go around the lines. One thing that is important though to notice, I mean, yeah, since I'm going in with some markers later, you don't need to build up as much, since with watercolors there's always like a certain point where you have the feeling like, okay, I would like to have some deeper shadows or some deeper tones, and but I know already that if I re-wet it or if I apply more color, I might ruin it, or the chances are high that it might, yeah, be too much. So the typical angst to overwork your picture. If you use some markers together with a watercolor, you can just keep in mind that you only need to do a little bit, or like a base, and with markers you can still add more depth to it. So try to keep the lights sharp by again wiping off some color here and there, especially on the nose bridge. You want it to be a bit lighter, but also you want to have some visible shadows. Same for under the lip, the underlip. Putting some there, and the paper is still moist, but it's already, it has dried down a bit. So I use some more clear water to blend it together. And since it's not fully dry, we won't have those harsh stylistic watercolor edges that are not that great with painting skin. So yeah, last but not least, I put some harsher shadows there, which is possible since the paper isn't wet anymore, or fully wet, so the lines will stay visible. But again, I keep some depth for the markers later. Alright, so now we have done the face. We can now continue with the neck. And yeah, as I said, like with the face, I used some clean water. You can already go in with some color here and there, and just wipe it. So and that's basically up to you. But since this area doesn't need that much accuracy, I can already go in with some color. And again, I use some orange for the shadows, and later on some magenta. But first we use the orange. And I use the orange tone especially since it has like some high saturation that works great as a transition tone. So if you use some mute tones and if you mix the magenta with the Naples yellow reddish, it already gets muted down a bit. So with the orange we have like some higher saturation going in there. And yeah, I just imagine like talking from light sources, I think like the light would come from here. It doesn't really, so it does matter, but I could also have drawn it from the other side since the face is very neutral. But since it comes from there, I color places like this one. So let's use some magenta to make it even a bit deeper. So I put the shadows like right here because this one is a bit in the front, and so this would mean that this gets a shade. Then this one would be lighter, I think, so we would add some shades here and there. Right, so now that we are basically done with here, again, there's going to be a layer of marker applied later, but I now focus on coloring this skin. And I again start with the face, and I show you in the end, like again there's a different nose and it has a bit of a different shape this time, but you can basically apply the same thing, just need to pay like some attention on different aspects like the nose. So as before, I use a clean brush and clean water and just wet the area in order for the colors to flow. And again, I'm going to use some Naples yellow reddish purely, so no orange or magenta mixed in there. And again, I try to focus on defining the shape by coloring the outline. But this time, as I said before, so I darkened a bit the area around the shin and went up a bit lighter to the space above. But here I'll use some more color going down from under the eyes and making this area look a bit lighter. So in the end, this area right here around the eyes is a bit darker, and you can drag it down. But yeah, focus that the forehead has also a bit color, so it's not fully white. You can work with stuff like that, so you can use a orange transition tone right here, which I might do, but that's like optional. So using like a sharp light source and making a hard line. Oh yeah, I mean let's try it. Okay, use some color there and some orange and just work it a bit up here. So yeah, okay. Almost looks like the mask from Cat Noir around this area. And this makes it nice, especially if we are going to use like a very harsh, white tone, a light white for this little thing next to his nose. And to make it even more visible later, I use some magenta and color it from the nose so it gets a light rosy tone. But we want to make it blend better, so use some more that orange tone. And as you can see with the clean brush, you can do some work around the eyes. And yeah, basically going a bit down again. So looks a bit more consistent. So since this area is a bit too light, I use some orange again with some Naples yellow reddish, this time a bit more orange, to draw around the outline, to make it a bit more rendered if you want. So just draw the outline, use a clean brush and then blend it together. Trying to do it a bit thinner so it's not standing out as much, but still it's visible. And as I noticed, like the color concentrates around this area, I use the brush and wipe the pigment away to create some better highlights there. And also I noticed that on the other side of the nose, this area right here could need some deeper shadow. So yeah, in the end it's a bit figuring out. I don't really have a rule when to use the orange and when to use the pink. It's just in the end more about the harmony of this of the skin tone. So if you have like the feeling that there could be some, or that it looks too orange, then you might want to add some magenta, or you might add some orange if it looks too reddish. There's also like a little brown tone that I regularly use for painting skin, which is I think it's called English red. It's this tone. Yeah, it's a very red brown tone. But I thought, like, for a manga drawing, working with those more saturated and vivid colors, yeah, can't be bad. It's fitting. So adding some shadows around the eyes, and also like doing some for the hair. And yeah, all right. So it's almost done. I think it's just missing some shadows again under the lips. And the rest is done with Copic once this is dried. So, I mean, okay, under this eye I can use a bit more rosy tones. But yeah, so far so good. Well, I mean, yeah, okay. I just do the shadows of the upper lip with the marker. So just to be sure, because yeah, with marker usually I'm a bit more precise, because the paper is dry and or like I can better control the humidity of the paper. All right, so let's go for the neck. Basically the same, except I just went in with the clean brush. This one I applied color directly. But I think with that you can already see like this thing isn't really important. It's more important that you use your brush to push and drag the colors around. And then just notice there's a watercolor edge right there, so just rewetting the whole face again to blend it better a bit more evenly. Alright, I think this is okay. So I think for the light source it might come from here, and so using some Naples yellow reddish and some magenta and painting the dark shadows there. This is light, okay. So again, I was thinking like the light comes from here, so this line right here would be a light one, this area right here, and this would also have some shine. Could drag this thing a bit down, also up here a bit. But from the basic situation, this should work. And again, we can also use some orange for some transition tones for the, I think it's called subsurface scattering, which makes it extra nice if you use some high saturated tones as like a transition tone for the shadows. And the shadows are going to be a bit more dull when we are going to use the Copics. And also, again, this is a good example, the color just spread it in with the skin, but with the clean brush, this is no problem. We can just push and drag it around and fix that little area, so it doesn't really affect the rest of the image. Just use some more shade, since this one is a bit, got a bit lighter, but for more details, we're going in there with Copic markers. So just quickly do the hands and use the time so the face can dry. And then we'll start working with the markers. And this will work since we did the watercolor before, and so we don't have the struggle that the watercolor sets where the marker has been. So I'll be right back, now just focusing on the hands, and like the shoulder part is also skin with some red stripes there. So now that has dried, I'm going to use the markers. And for that I'm going to use eggshell or E50 and Colors Blender for the first step. I'm going to apply some more depth with Skin White or E00. And for some purple shades, I'm going to use Heath or Heath and Pale Heath or Heath. I'm not sure. But yeah, so let's just start with the first layer. And since the paper is a bit thicker, I like to use with a blender to put down some kind of a base. So just like as you would do with watercolors, I just apply it here and there to set the paper in a way for the marker and to be able to blend it better. And so now I'm just going to deepen what's already there. So since with this we have like the light from above more, the chin area is a bit more darker, And we're going to work our way to the top. And as you notice, like with the blender, I also push the pigments a bit here and there. This marker is a bit broken, but this won't stop us. Yeah, just to make sure I work with what I already did. Going to do some more shadows right here that go up of the nose, also for the hair some bits. Damn, this marker is really broken, but we'll try our best. So under the eye, of course, is always a safe area to put some shadows here and there. And yeah, just let's blend this a bit. And of course, under the eye, a nice line of shadows also neat. And then we go for this little simple hard line above the mouth, so to yeah, give the illusion of a lip here. And yeah, so this is the first layer with eggshell, or the color eggshell. And of course we can still use it for the neck as well, just to make everything look more as if it's like one skin tone, or one tone in general, like that it belongs together, and it's not just like a head that is put on top like a puppet. And the sense again is to just make stuff deeper, and the nice thing about the marker tones is that we also are able to add some more yellow shade to it. Just going also a bit more nose. You can actually just like, you can on the sides go up, or you can just leave it as a little triangle in a way. But I like to, with this type of nose, to do some bit more than just like this little triangle shade. So yeah, okay. So the base is done for this one. Now we are going to add some more shadows with the skin white or E00, and just work the areas that we already have, but be a bit yeah, not that generous, just like doing not as much. So I'm not going to yeah, use the blender for the whole face, but only occasionally when I think things aren't working out. But for the deep shadows, I'll use the E00 to create a more reddish tone. And as you can see, like this blends together with the watercolor just fine. So there's nothing like this thing that would appear if you do like the Copics first and the rest afterwards. I'll do some shadows here as well, just to create a bit more like a dimensional look. And since the watercolors are there, we don't really need to be that accurate, because when they merge together, it's not yeah, as distracting in a way. So last but not least, we have some purple here, and these are only like for the very strong shadows. So just in case you think you might ruin stuff like you're drawing with too dark colors, so I just put it here, and as you can see, it's a bit darker than the rest. we still can correct mistakes with pencil. So I use it for under the nose, and if I would screw it up, then I could use a white pencil and maybe lighten it a bit. So I mean, this whole thing is also in a way me explaining that you don't really have to fear the mistakes, since again, like with watercolor, if you feel it's too light, you can use some more can use some markers or other media to yeah, save it. And here's as well. So if the Copics aren't enough, we can in the end still go for another layer with some pencils, which I probably would use around this area because I think it's too light. Or maybe just try it with the markers. So just wetting it a bit, then carefully add some more shade. Alright, so I mean, you already can see the difference. This became a bit more yellowish, which again is a matter of style, but I think it looks a bit more like higher contrast, and it looks more, yeah, not finished because the eye is still white, but yeah, it looks more with the higher contrast. I'm sorry, my English isn't that on point right now. But back to the violet. So we can use it also under the eye and for this little crease right here. Maybe for the mouth a bit. And on areas like this, where there usually isn't, or where there are the darkest shadows. And yeah, okay, then I think this is done. So we continue with this one and starting again with the blender. You usually have to be very careful if you have like pencil lines. So here is like a little sketch of the scar that Alan Walker has. So I'll try to carefully work with that. So watercolor usually makes the pencil lines set already a bit, but you can't be for certain. So just carefully dabbing the blender to not create any smudges. And then you're going back in with the Copic marker, with the eggshell. Just trying to strengthen the shadows. So under the eye and on this side, I think I make this side a bit darker, so it blends better with this side, but also this there marker. And then I'm going to add the shadow for the lip. Trying to blend it as smooth as possible with the blender. And then also I'm adding this little line for this lip, and I'm going a bit darker there. For the forehead, I'm going to just build up this layer. this damn thing. I really need to get a new one. So, also this under this eye we can use some more shadows. Blend it just right in. base has the first layer of marker. Oh, did I do that? Did I? I don't know. So I just continue with the neck. Just to keep this step at least consistent. Since I'm usually we would do this copying step once you're fully done with the watercolor, so I have to be a bit more careful with this area, so I don't paint or draw over the lines with the markers, because as you have seen here, like the marker ink likes to enhance the watercolor that's put on top. So if I would use like a gray tone and there is a line drawn right under it, the gray tone would, just like this red, become very dark, and we don't want that. So again, usually you want to use the markers once everything else is done with watercolor, but I think since this is a tutorial for the skin, we can just make an exception. So now the actual thing is done. We use E00 again, just like with here, and darken the shadows. So stuff like under the eyes, that might make sense, and on this side of the face, also right under the eyebrows and on the nose bridge. To give it more depth and also make the lighting situation a bit more believable. And of course you can outline the face a bit and yeah, just try to get rid of this yellow tone a bit and make it more balanced. So now this is done, I can go in with some violet again. And I think for this I try to blend it a bit better. So we have this part, then I use the marker and just blend it in here, so I can use the same effect on this side and it doesn't become like a blob. Here also I'm going to use it and blend it with this marker, with the E00, and yeah, it's a lot of back and forth in a way. And there can be some shadows here and around the eye. And especially this little line under the eye has some pretty nice effect. So, alright. I think now, I mean, I said like watercolor and Copics, but I will do some final touches with the pencils actually. So last but not least, I'm going to use the pencil just to show you how I usually would work with them. And I go with two colors. Both are polychromos by Faber-Castell, and one is white and the other one is called Light Flesh. And with that I'm doing like smoother transitions. You can also use them to, in a way, cover a bit of the black outline, just yeah, in case you like that more. But also you can go in there and define the shadows a bit. And blend them better together. Because those pencils have like a very opaque charm to them, so they so you can cover stuff like let's say right here. You can use that to build up and render the shadows or soften them. If you go over the harsher or harder lines. And same goes for here, because this has become quite yellow. But with the pencil, with the white, we can get a bit more lighter tones back. Alright, I think now you really can see it. I just thought like this, I haven't started with this one yet because these stripes are going to be red and I don't have red markers here with me, so I won't color this at the moment with Copic markers, just because I would have to use like red watercolor on top of it and red on top of markers again. Does this, so I will spare this part, but I will show you in one final step the white highlight that I'm going to place right here. So for that I'm going to use this color, the Dr. P.H. Martin's pen white, and use my usual regular synthetic brush. I won't use the expensive brush from the last video, just because it's a bit too big, like doing the face with a brush like this, and ooh, this looks horrible. Just let me re-wet it. So yeah, okay, this is a bit too big, so point made. So no, I used the synthetic brush and this color and just paint this part that I sketched earlier with the white color. And it's no problem if you paint over stuff that shouldn't be overpainted, because you can still wet the brush and lift off some of that white, just to make sure that you've got that right. And also you can use it for a little dot right here, and also for some shine on the lips. And since this is dilutable with water, you can also just swipe that away, as I did when I did the hair. So okay, I think at the skin of the faces at least we are done. And yeah, so I think this tutorial is coming to an end. So again, thank you very much for supporting me on Patreon. If you have any ideas for future tutorials, feel free to DM me or write a comment on the commission poll, and I see what I can do. But so far, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it, and I really hope to see you next time. So have a nice day. Also let me know if there's anything I can do better. If there's some questions, I'm all open for it. But yeah, that's enough of my babbling. So I hope you have a good day, and yeah, until the next time. Bye.